Our last speaker we will move into is actually a pair of speakers who are joining us from Dallas. Collectively, as we progress towards our advanced years, nurturing all aspects of our health are essential. We have talked about urban design and food and nutrition, emotional and psychological well-being, and healthy materials for construction. But in another arena, that of brain health and aging, there's been exciting new research and newly emerging best practices. Most commonly, designing for aging is discussed in terms of mobility or disabled access, but what if it is also a question of how brain health and the built environment intersect, and how we can take advantage of the brain's ability to change and adapt as we get older? What is brain health? Why does it matter? And what tools and design-related opportunities are there to uplift our daily lives, especially with respect to aging in place within our community? Our next pair of speakers will be getting to the core of this question. Siobhan Farvardin is a nationally respected architect and the Global Practice Director for Senior Living at HKS Architects, where she leads one of the nation's top-ranked studios dedicated exclusively to environments for aging. As a Cornell industry scholar with over 25 years of professional experience, Siobhan brings a uniquely interdisciplinary perspective to her work. She was honored as a 2023 design champion by the Environments for Aging, a recognition that celebrates leaders within the senior living design sector who are bringing change and advocacy to the industry. Through her work, she develops research-driven strategies that promote cognitive health, reduce social isolation, and reshape how communities support aging populations. Her colleague, Dr. Mike O'Neill, is the Global Practice Director of Enterprise Research at HKS Architects. With a BA in psychology and a master's in architecture and a PhD in architecture, his responsibilities include thought leadership, and he leads efforts through research and fostering innovation within his firm, testing new ideas and nurturing incubator programs, and building leading-edge analytical tools. Mike's research explores the intersection between the design of spaces we occupy and stress, brain health, and performance, and he has authored 3 books on the subject. Interestingly, he has developed and licensed several artificial intelligence applications within the architecture industry, one in particular called Human Space. This AI tool has been shown tremendous potential to assess the impacts of interior environments on stress and workplace performance. So our next presentation will be a group. So please welcome Siobhan Farvardin and Dr. Mike O'Neill.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us, and most importantly, thanks for your hospitality and opening up your doors for us. We're extremely excited to talk to you today about something that's near and dear to our heart, brain health and the impact of how brain health can impact design and help for longevity. And while accessibility has been a great means for helping the aging population, the codes that are in place over the past 20 plus 30 years, it's really important, but also thinking about how do we stretch beyond just accessibility? How do we really help with cognitive fitness? And so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Mike O'Neill, and he's going to share what is brain health.
Okay, so it is great to be here, and by the way, I'm from Austin. Not that Dallas is bad. No hard feelings, right? All right. So we want to go beyond using design to just protect physical health, right? And so what we're doing with our research and in this presentation is talking about what can we do to the environment to protect and enhance cognitive health and brain health. And this is important because if you're an older person, you can be perfectly physically healthy, but if your brain isn't all there, Well, what fun is that? What good is that? You got to have both pieces of it. So I'm going to put a new term out there. It might be new to some of you: neuroplasticity. It's kind of a scary word. No, we're not talking about the plastic that's in your brain, although that's another issue. Actually, neuroplasticity has to do with the adaptability of your brain when you get a new learning experience or a challenge. Your brain actually doesn't physically change, but things happen, like you add the number, you increase the number of neurons that are involved in a internal computation or holding a memory. You strengthen the connections between assemblies of neurons, so it kind of take the noise out a little bit, and it's a clearer connection, like a clearer signal. And you also, just at the end of the day, you're enhancing your brain function. And this is proven. This isn't something we've made up, but it's a very important thing. And what we're doing that I think is rather unique is that we are making a connection between spatial design features that you can implement, and they're not complicated to do, and increase neuroplasticity. And especially in older people, let's imagine you're out in your community, you're navigating from one place to another. If you're more confident that you're not going to get lost because your brain function is better, you're going to take advantage of what the community has to offer, or because you're going to feel more confident going out there. And the more confident, that helps you to explore more, and maybe you're going to encounter more enriched experiences, which in turn have the beneficial impact of making your cognitive health, your brain health, even better. And on the negative side of that, if you are wandering around and the environment is not legible, you're getting lost, or there aren't many challenging experiences, or the challenge is too much, that stress directly goes back in and starts impacting your neuroplasticity. So the environment does play a major role in that. As I said, we're exploring this as we go. So specifically, what Siobhan's going to be getting into is this idea of affordances. And affordances are aspects of the environment that help to support a specific desired behavior. And affordances also incorporate the notion of legibility, and legibility helps you understand what the space is for. So if you go to somebody's house, a friend's house that you've never been to before, and you know that what that kitchen is, you know what that room is for. It's for cooking, but it's also for social interaction. So you don't have to have anybody tell you that. The space reads that well. So that idea of being able to communicate what the design is intended to do, and then reinforce a beneficial behavior, is a key part of our opportunity here, because we can do that with both built spaces and with the larger scale space. So there are 5 affordances, and I'm going to have to turn here because my brain health isn't as good as it should be. Focus, rest, social connection, and collaboration and play. These are elements, in particular the collaboration and play, that we have. There's a decent body of research that says that if you encounter a space like that, that will enhance neuroplasticity. And the others we're also exploring as well. But the key one is this idea of choice, legibility, promoting exploration, and enriched design features. So as I've been saying, choice is critical, because you've gotta be able to explore, and if you don't have choice, like especially for seniors, for older people, when we're designing places for them, the trend has been to kind of bubble wrap people. You've got to protect them. They can't fall. They can't do this. They can't do that. The more you do that, you take away the learning experiences. You reduce neuroplasticity, and it's a slope downhill. It's not a good direction. And so we believe that this idea of creating spaces that are legible enough that you feel confident that you can read them, so you'll explore, whether that's in a building or whether it's in your community, so you feel confident, but you also don't want the challenge to be overwhelming. You don't want the difficulty in navigating and then finding these enriched spaces or these new experiences to be too difficult, because that will increase stress to a harmful level, and stress will immediately impact neuroplasticity in the short and long term. What you want to do, the wonderful opportunity, is to design places and spaces that offer a bit of challenge that you can overcome, and that learning literally translates to better neuroplasticity. And the cool thing is that environments are acting on us all the time, and they're doing this to us for better or worse. So if we can just be conscious of that, we can make intentional designs to support neuroplasticity, then everything is great. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to my colleague, Siobhan, and she's going to talk about the specifics of actually implementing this in terms of design, both at the macro level and at the micro level.
Thank you, Mike. So we have talked about this a little, or we heard about this a little bit in the previous panels, the missing housing that we have not seen. There's not a lot of diversity in our housing. We're seeing a lot of single family, the leave it to beaver, let's call it, family. And that's just simply not how we are. We don't live like that anymore. We are more diverse in how we live. And so we really need to look at the housing typologies that we're offering to folks and make sure that it's more diverse. This is an image of Rosemary Beach. It's actually in Florida. It's quite affluent, but you can do this in affordable settings. And so the idea is, how do you create more integrated housing typologies? How do you create a mix of uses? This is what creates vibrant places for people to want to explore. You have a water cooler moment where you can visit with a friend or a merchant and really build these vibrant communities. And we talked about car culture. You know, much of when you look at the smile of the United States, typically where you're not focused on being pedestrian orientated, the car has been king, and when you prioritize the car, then that's what gets prioritized, is the streets where the cars go, and then the pedestrian goes off to the wayside. So a lot of these sidewalks we'll see are dominated by obstructions or light poles, and it becomes very stressful in these environments, and therefore isolates folks from being outside of their dwelling units and to engage. So we're further isolating folks by prioritizing the car. We also heard biophilia connection. It's not something that you want to have as an afterthought. You want to make sure that this is prioritized. It's not a nice to have, but a must to have. And connecting it to areas where you have a live, work, play environment. People will have rest and reflection. They can be recentered in themselves, get the vitamin D that they need that we all know we're lacking. Excuse me. And then, of course, not isolating populations where we're looking at this group is over here, this group is over here, and this group, I'm talking about age groups. And we really want to make sure that folks can integrate in different age groups, because we know that there's a loneliness epidemic across the nation. And our Gen Zs or millennials, they are lonely also, or our seniors and our elders are lonely. And so what great way would it be to help solve these connections where you can have a mentee-mentor kind of symbiotic support for folks to live in a vibrant area. Many of you may have been familiar with this book. It's probably 25 years old. So this is not new that we have been struggling to try and find ways to solve for housing. I think what's happened is we kind of supersized our home and not really thought about how can we design intentionally. We have a lot of appliances that we'll pick up from Home Depot and we go, this is great for a 600 square foot apartment, and it's also good for the 3,000 square foot house. And so we need to really say, hey, we don't have to standardize everything. It can be more, less homogeneous and more variety. So if you think about how a ship or a yacht is designed, it's really about a game of inches. So really thinking about how the connections come together, really customizing it. And of course, that can be expensive up front when you're thinking about that. But if we adopt it as a society, there's ways to create innovation and then therefore become more affordable for the masses. So this is a smaller micro unit, actually, from Vienna. And if we think about the streamlinedness of the cabinets, so there's a clarity in the space, the legibility that Mike talked about. These spaces can be actually very serene and very useful. We're doing a senior living community in Virginia Beach, and they're using Murphy beds and transformable furniture with Ori furniture, where the bed is occupied at night, and then it goes up and it retracts into the ceiling. So therefore, now you've got double use in your space, and you can kind of condense the required square footage for your dwelling unit. We know that we can challenge codes sometimes, but not always. And so I'm showing this picture of a shower that shows all the requirements that you have to have from a code standpoint. And while it's meeting the requirements for the code that was probably written in the late 80s, early 90s, it has evolved, but it hasn't evolved enough, and it's addressing more of a generic approach. And so what we really need to look at is, while we need to address code, we also need to address where folks are. Not everybody has the same accessible needs. So there's ways to disguise support for accessibility. And so you can disguise that in a towel rack, you can disguise that in a soap dispenser, a holder, you can disguise that just by offering some more aesthetically pleasing rather than institutional looking grab bars. And this is not to say that these are going into accessible units, but maybe it's just a support of an in-between from accessible to current everyday use. This is a project that we did in Newport Beach. The client had also taken the same product to Texas. And we're lucky in California that assisted living is classified as residential. However, when we go to other states, it's classified as institutional. And so what we did is we said the client wanted to have full-blown kitchens in the assisted living unit. And that idea was to make sure that they had their dignity in place. So whether or not they use the kitchen or not, it's something that's not taken away from them. It's something that they grew up living with for the past 50 years, and they wanted to make sure that they still had that when they moved into assisted living community. So when we did a project for them in Texas, Texas views assisted living as institutional. And so what we did is we challenged the code. We said, hey, you need to really look and consider maybe changing or adapting. And we actually got a waiver to implement this, and same design in Texas. And codes are great for protecting society, but sometimes it can't evolve quick enough to the pace of society. So we need to take these opportunities to really evolve it. Focus. So we're all bombarded by Teams messages, Outlook, phone, text. It's a lot, right? And the world is evolving even more rapidly. So there's going to be more coming at us as we move into the future. And so providing opportunities where we have quiet respite spaces is really key. It gives us opportunity to make sure that we're centered in ourselves, and also gives us confidence. This is a project that we did where it's a life plan community. So a life plan community meaning independent living, assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing. This is all in 12 stories. And what we wanted to do is make sure that not everybody some people are independent, but not everybody's independent, especially memory support folks. So we wanted to make sure that they had a place to kind of connect and be centered. And we created this light well, so to speak. We use light within the light well to create kind of whimsical art so to speak, so they could be kind of delighted to look at it. It wasn't expensive to do that, but it also kind of allowed folks to see beyond the artwork and see what else is going on in the building. So kind of like the Alfred Hitchcock movie, Rear View Window, I think is what it's called. Another project that we did, this client said, hey, the most important thing in a successful senior living community is to make sure that the staff is really taken care of. If the staff is not taken care of and they don't feel supported, or they're not in an oasis, so to speak, the residents won't be taken care of. And so a lot of times we'll see developments and they'll put the staff lounge in the basement, and it has a window that's only so big and no outdoor space. And so they said, let's make sure that the staff can have an elevated experience just as much as the residents. And so this bistro right here is actually the staff lounge where they can use it just like the residents can use it. And it was really successful, especially during COVID when these communities were closing off to the outside world. Staff could become a surrogate family to the residents where they can have visitors. You notice there's a lot of connection to the outdoors. This is an urban setting, so it's an outdoor courtyard, and a lot of connection also to some art too. And then, and as Mike had mentioned, always making sure that you have healthy, positive challenges. There's a saying in England, bungalow legs, and it's referring to people who downsize from their townhomes, from a 2-story, 3-story townhome to a flat or a bungalow. And what that means is their legs are not being challenged. And so when their legs are not challenged, and when you lose strength in your legs, you're more at risk from having a hip break or a fall. And that's gonna hurt and encourage decline if you do that. So with play, we wanna make sure that we have positive, healthy challenges. Whether or not we engage, it's just the idea that it's an opportunity there to kind of stress yourself in a positive way.
Okay, so this is all great, and I'm a researcher, so I like to measure things. You know, how do we know if a space or a place is actually having a positive or a negative effect on brain health or neuroplasticity? So we've recently developed a technology. It's a neurobiological neural network, so that's your other long word you're going to get out of me today. You hear about deep learning, you hear about AI, you hear neural networks, right? Those neural networks are strictly computational, they're very efficient, but they have nothing to do with your brain. So we've used a relatively new technology that allows you to actually build models that are built on the neurobiology of the brain. So they let you, they actually compute differently, and they pass information like the brain does, and you can have numbers of cells like the brain does. So we're using this technology, we just developed it, to assess the effectiveness of place, literally, on the brain health. So it lets us model things like the number of neurons involved in a computation, the strength of the connection between groups of neurons, and it also lets us model the effects of stress on reducing temporarily neuroplasticity. So the main features that we're interested in the brain. And you can give it a task. In this case, we were giving it wayfinding tasks. You can give it a starting point, and you can give it a completion point, and you can have it model the decision making that's required at each node. And you can also have it track, you can put a probe in there, literally, and you can track when it's stressed out. And then there's a feedback loop that reduces the neuroplasticity, which means the computing of your brain at the next decision point isn't as good. So it's a very effective tool, and the idea is that you could use it to evaluate areas where neuroplasticity is increased, which could be an enriched area, maybe it's near a park or some other feature, and you can also use it to identify areas where stress is increased, maybe the decision-making point is kind of complicated and you're stressed out, and it feeds that back into the brain. And then, just from a very practical perspective, you can go back in and you can look at and it also lets you model landmarks and signage. And so you can go back into the actual place and you can take a look and go, oh yeah, this is kind of confusing. What kind of a tweak can we make to it to improve the experience there and improve, building that brain health? So just wanted to put that out there that we're playing with this technology, and it's super interesting, I think. So if you have any questions, I guess we'll be doing the panel part. And I would also, if you want to snap that QR code, you can look at a recent paper that we did on brain health. Thank you.